Yeah, yeah. You already know what it is.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the Vansiclen podcast. I want to give a special shout out to my next guest, Seth Witz. He is the definition of no excuses. The first time I met him, I was a trainer at the Seattle Boxing Gym in Seattle, Washington. I remember just walking into the gym and he was already there working his ass off, just beating the crap out of the bag. And that day I had been feeling super tired, super sore, and I felt, like, dang, I don't know if I can do another round today. I'm like super sore. And I sat down and looked to my right, and he's over there busting the bag up in his wheelchair, going back and forth, hands going crazy on the bag. And it just kept me inspired. And he's the absolute definition of no excuses. Enjoy this podcast because this man's a beast. Thanks for joining another episode of the Vibes Vansiclen podcast. And today, my guest is the wonderful Seth Witz from Fishn'Chips Boxing Club, founder of that. And you're a former wrestler, or you're just a fan of wrestling?
No, so I was a former heel manager. So I was the guy on the outside of the ring with the bad guy in the ring and distracting the referee and hitting people overhead with
I
folding
love
chairs.
it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I love wrestling, and I saw actually on your Facebook page that you actually got to meet one of your favorite wrestlers of all time. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when I was a little kid, it was Hulkamania, and they set up a thing where I met Hogan, and we did a little promotional stuff. He did a
Nice.
radio spot, we did a TV spot. The funny thing was, I was about, let's see, it was 1987, so I was 8 years old,
Mm,
and later I worked in television on a Saturday morning TV program, and I did an interview with him then. He
right.
was in about the mid 90s. He was in WCW at the time, and we kind of reconnected then. So every so often, I reconnect with him, and he's a good guy. Did a lot for the business, obviously. And when he started out, people don't realize that he was in Japan a lot in the early '80s, late '70s, and things like that. So he had a big career going already right before the Hulkamania stuff. So it
Right.
was cool. As a little kid, it was great. As I get older, I've had obviously other influences and mentors and things like that. But
Right.
but it's great to be able to do that as a kid, and he was super nice to me.
Oh,
He was
yeah, that's right, brother. That's awesome.
yeah, he said, brother. Yeah, and I always say brother at the end of things, and I'm sure that that's probably what I
Oh,
did.
yeah, that influence is definitely still strong in today's world.
Yeah,
Seth, so can you tell the Vibers a little bit about yourself and who you are and what your background is when it comes to fighting sports and all that?
sure, man. As I kind of mentioned already, that other influences, other mentors as the years got on.
Mhm.
When I got into boxing, I actually got in through professional wrestling.
Right.
Uh, my biggest thing was I wanted to be a heel manager, which I ended up doing. The person that got me in the business or got me the first connection to the business was the fabulous Moolah. Do you know who that is? Have you heard
No,
that?
I don't know who that is.
She was the longest running women's champion. She started wrestling in the late 40s.
Oh, wow.
And I think 1952, she won the women's championship. And she held that until the early 80s, 1984.
Right.
And so she trained me. But the thing about her is she said, Seth, you're 3'4", you're 85 pounds, you got brittle bones.
Right.
She said, if a wrestler decides that they think it's going to look good to pick you up and throw you, you're obviously not going to be able to body slam a 350-pound wrestler. You're going to have to know where to hit the guy and how to hit the guy.
Right.
So you need to learn boxing. So she connected me to a guy named SPUTNIK Monroe. His real name was Roscoe Grumbus. His real name was great, but it was SPUTNIK Monroe. And he was a wrestler and carnival boxer in Memphis, Tennessee. And so he did take on all comers, and
Right.
you could like 3 rounds with him boxing or 10 minutes with him wrestling, that kind of thing in the carnivals. And he started teaching me a little bit about boxing, what to look at. Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano. He actually knew Rocky, and Rocky refereed some of his wrestling matches. He kind of told me what to look at and all these different things.
Right.
And we'll get back to Sputnik in a little bit because he had a lot to do with the civil rights movement in the South in the
Right.
1960s.
Right.
Uh, and then I also knew a Romany Gypsy bare knuckle fighter, and we'd been friends through some other friends, and don't ask how. And he's taught me how to box. He said, "Hey, man, I'm going to teach you how to fight." So that was how I got into boxing. And when I was doing the wrestling, it was kind of around the time that you had to start choosing. Do you want to be more of a fighter, or do you want to be more of a sports entertainer the way wrestling was going?
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys that I was managing wanted to do MMA. They were like, "I'm more of a fighter. I don't want to do gimmicks and things like that." So they said, "Hey, Seth, you know how to box, right?" I said, "Yeah, I learned a little bit." And so next thing you know, I started coaching guys. I had one guy coming over, two guys coming over, five guys, 10 guys, and Fishn'Chips Boxing Club. I was teaching them how to box for them to do MMA.
Right.
And that's kind of how it got going. And the club has evolved over the years. I'm actually going through a new evolution right now, which we can get into as far as the club and what we focus on. But that's kind of how it got going. And I just love fighting, man, and I love scrapping. And for some little bones, I know that's an odd occupation to choose, but it's not too odd. My doctor even jokes around. He said there's a big thing in the medical community about people with brittle bones, osteogenesis imperfecta is the name of it.
Yeah.
And he said, they always joke around about the OI karate convention,
Right.
because people tend to do things that, maybe people wouldn't think, but they're a natural fit for it. It's all that attitude. You
Oh
know that
yeah.
too.
And that's one of the things that I respected about you, Seth. Like there are days when I was just so sore, but I look over and you're over there beating the shit out of the bag. I'm like, man, I got no excuse. You're the definition of no excuses. So
Yeah,
I really appreciate you, especially earlier in my career when I would just look over, I'd be just like, I can't go another round. I look over you and you're still beating the bag up. You've been there all day. I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get
we
up.
had fun, man. We had fun back
Yeah, we
then.
did a little sparring together too. I got a little clip I'm gonna put in here. We did some rounds together. It was fun.
And I just remember you said to me after we did that, you said, "I wouldn't want to meet you in a bar."
Yeah, no thanks, bro.
You know,
You have your hands are you probably have bigger hands than me, huh? Your hands are hella big.
oh, can I show you this thing, man?
Yeah, show me something.
He used to have a platinum and diamond ring. The diamond spelled out the word puke. And he would punch somebody in the head in a street fight, and they would get puke backwards on the head. So when they looked in the mirror in his scar, it said puke. And he's like, "That's what I thought of you." So a few years back, if it hadn't been for COVID, I was going to be inducted into the Bare Knuckle and Bodyguard Hall of Fame, but things got postponed and, whatever. It was disappointing, but what are you going to do?
Yeah,
But my friend, she's a precious metals caster, and
right.
she got together with a jeweler that's a maiden voyage jewelry. And my friend is Jenna Houndshell casting. They made me a puke ring.
Nice.
And
I
stuff
don't
like
want to get hit with that. That's
that.
no bare knuckles for me, buddy.
So
That's funny. That's awesome though.
that was an honor to Sputnik. He was a great guy, man. He was in Memphis. He was from Dodge City, Kansas, and he got famous in Memphis television. And so back then, the audiences were segregated in the 60s, 50s,
Right.
60s. And he would get in the ring and he'd say, "All my people are everywhere around this arena. They're in the bleachers, they're in the ringside. But if my fans," meaning the black fans that came to see him because they were segregated up in the bleachers, he said, "if they can't pay a ticket to see me front row, I ain't fighting." And he'd walk. And he did this so many times, enough times that the promoters said, "We're going to sell tickets to anybody, anywhere. If they want to come see him, they're going to come see him."
Yeah.
Then he would get local car dealerships and say, "Hey, Sputnik, we want you to, promote our car dealership." He'd say, "All right." And they'd say, "But we don't want people, it's whites only, that kind of shit." And he'd go, "Well, then then you don't have me for the ad. If my fans can't buy a car from you, then I'm not going to buy a car from you. Like, what's your problem?" So he would do that, but he was so popular that they would fold. So he was the first guy to integrate audiences in the South in the 1960s.
And then what's this guy's full name for the audience again?
His real name was Roscoe Brumbaugh.
Yep.
His ring name was Sputnik Monroe, and because his middle name was Monroe,
Right.
and he was a heel. He was a bad guy, and this was the 50s when he started. And some woman said, "You ain't no better than a Sputnik," communist, the
Right.
she said, "You ain't no better than Sputnik." So he called himself Sputnik Monroe. He's like, "Hey, that's pretty good." So, which, hey man, we're in this business. Somebody yells at you, somebody heckles you or whatever,
Right.
take it, turn it around, use it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's what he did. And his ring jacket and boots are in the Rock and Soul Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. So you can see
Nice.
where
Nice.
they got.
Nice.
But he was the guy that kind of hit me to boxing, man. How to do it, and just a tough fucking guy.
Yeah. It sounds like in the 50s, I would never want to be alive in it. I'm sorry. Not just being like a person, but just being black in the 50s too. Jeez, that's like probably all time worst.
Well, look at me, man. They didn't even have wheelchair ramps on the sidewalks, and shit like that. So it's
Facts, yeah.
yeah, we would have had to have a lot more street fights back in the day, man.
Facts. Who's your favorite fighter of all time, Seth?
We talking boxing?
Yeah, let's talk
Okay,
boxing.
boxing. I don't watch a lot of modern boxing. There's certain guys that I'll pay attention to every so often. There's a guy, Richard Vansiclen.
Oh, that's me. That's the vibes, baby. Yeah.
The guy, he's hot right now. He's pretty good. Um, I like a lot of I like the bare knuckle stuff. So I
Yeah.
like Lenny McLean, the governor from England back in the 60s, 70s. Big Joe Joyce was an Irish gypsy bare knuckle fighter, But every time, if I talk myself around in circles, Rocky Marciano, man,
Yeah.
undefeated world heavyweight champion.
Right.
The guy just was a natural fighting freak, if I can say that, with no disrespect in terms of the word freak. But
Right.
the guy, just the power, the raw power that he had, and the drive that he had to be a champion. Rocky Marciano, man.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. In terms of, you said you don't watch any modern fighting.
I did watch the Davis and Garcia fight.
Yeah, what'd you think of that Davis and Garcia fight?
So I had, not to tell tales out of school, somebody had said they thought it was fixed because he did the pump shot and the guy took a knee,
Right.
Garcia took a knee. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch this with an evil eye.
Right.
And at first I didn't see the shot. So I was like, maybe there's something to that. But there was definitely a body shot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I don't know if you saw the controversy afterwards, but one of Garcia's sparring partners claims that he hurt Garcia to the body, and then they played outro video of Garcia talking to his coach Joe Goosen and saying, "Is it that spot in the ribs that was hurting you?" And he's like, "Yeah." So it seems like he was actually previously hurt to the body in sparring going into the fight, but he obviously didn't pull out because regardless of what happened, the outcome, they made $50 million each, right? So you didn't lose, right?
Yeah, no, fighters. It's prize fighting. Jack Dempsey said the only real reason to fight is to make money. Well, there's other reasons too, but
Yeah,
it is prize fighting.
100% the business.
Yeah, and but Garcia, there was some cumulative shots during the fight. There was clearly the liver shot, under the ribs there, and a little, just not, I mean, I'm off camera here. The liver. He took the liver shot, and the delay. The thing about a body shot is there's always a delay. You get hit to the head, you get that trigeminal nerve shot. It clicks off the the messages to the brain, and you go down. So there's no body control for that. With the body shot, you get hit and you think you're fine, and then all of a sudden your insides kind of curl up and scrunch up, like if you scrunched up a ball of aluminum foil. Like that's how your body feels after that shot. So there's like a few seconds delay, and he took that knee, and I was like, that's That's just a bad shot.
A beautiful shot to the liver for sure. When it comes to you and what's going on now, what's next for Fish and Chips Boxing Club? What's next with you? Tell the Vibers kind of what's going on with you.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing, and I did definitely want to talk to you about that. When COVID hit, my club goes where I go. I don't have a gym.
Right,
It's
right,
the gym, go to the park, wherever you want to train. It's guerrilla training, I guess.
right.
When COVID hit, everything went online. I was even working for a couple of gyms that shut down permanent. Some temporarily and some permanent. So I went online and was doing training online with people, and that really worked well. And what I started discovering too is, how do I describe Fish and Chips Boxing Club? Because obviously I teach people how to box, fighting.
Yeah,
Uh, there's a lot of the bare knuckle stuff involved. So there's a lot of boxing as self defense.
right,
And I've had so many experiences, whether it's been professional wrestling, which back when I was doing it was a little bit more Wild West than it is now, even not to, I still respect everybody that's involved in it now, but it was a little wilder of a frontier when I was doing it.
right,
Uh, and I've been in punk bands. So, hits and things like that. I've had to have a few scraps in that. So, and then dealing with what I deal with the brittle bones, I've
yeah,
had to be a fighter both inside and out.
yeah,
And so Fishn'Chips Boxing Club, while I still enjoy the fist fighting aspects of it, and I teach people that, we've gone with online training and everything like that to a really the mental aspects. What does it take to be a fighter? What's
right.
the mindset you got to be a fighter? How do you get out of your head with the idea of this person's trying to hurt me? That kind of thing, and how do I try to hurt them? Really, that's what it is.
Yeah,
So I work with my own fighters. I work with my own boxers, and but we get into the mental aspect. And I work with fighters that are even all over the country training boxing at other gyms, and they're training how to fight. And then they come to me and we talk about, okay, like, what's your mindset in this? Like, these are my
right,
influences. This is who
right,
SPUTNIK MONROE was. This is who Moolah was. This
right,
is who all these people are. Why was Rocky Marciano such a beast when it came to the ring? So, get into all kinds of things like that. And what's the mindset? And so it's the physical, it's the boxing, and we do the training. And if you want to fight, I can definitely take you there. Or even if you're not trained to fight, you're someone that's going to work every day and
right.
saying, how do I approach this stuff? What do I do? How do I face this? We face a lot of hard things in life. And, the
Yeah,
mentality of a boxer, the mentality of a fighter, if you have that, even if you're not in a career in prize fighting, can take you a long way. And
100%.
so we get into things like that. So
That's really cool, Seth, that you have transitioned into that because, as you said, the fight is a lot of times outside the ring. Most of the fights that we encounter in life are not inside the ring, inside of that square. So that's really cool that you transition like that. I love that. For the Vibers, how can they get a hold of you if they want to do some mental training? They want to be part of Fish and Chips Boxing Club. How can they get a hold of you?
sure, man. Email is sethwitz at yahoo.com. That's SETHWITZ at
Mhm.
yahoo.com. Fish and Chips Wilson on Instagram. And
Mhm.
then Seth Witz on Facebook. So you can
All right.
message me, direct message me, email me, get a hold of me. And it doesn't matter where you are in the country or the world, I'll make time for you. And we can do this kind of video chat stuff, or we can even do it in person if you're local. And
Absolutely. And I will put all that in the link in the bio so that you guys can follow Seth. Again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast here. Great stuff that we talked about. Appreciate having you and keep kicking ass, Seth, because you've
you
been
too,
doing it for
man.
so many years. Thank you for being on the podcast. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having
Until
me,
next
man.
time, keep fighting.
You bet, brother.
Back then we didn't have a lot.